It's time, y'all. It is time to engage the derp counter and see exactly how many times here today I call the Warden the Dryad in Dungeon Defenders Awakened. Let's get it. What's going on, everyone? Juicebags here, and welcome back to the channel. Chromatic has been just laying it on super thick this week. Oh man, I absolutely love it. On Monday, we got the teaser of what would the new hero for Dungeon Defenders Awakened be. Yesterday, we got the reveal of who this hero is, who is the Warden, which is a reimagined Dryad coming to DDA. And then today we get a full breakdown of the work in progress, Warden's abilities and loadout. Now remember, this is all early, it's not in the game yet, so anything here would be subject to change. There will be links to all of the goodies down in the description below, so make sure to head on over and check out Chromatic's forum post. Now, first off, we know that the new hero coming is the Warden. The Warden is a reimagined hero that is returning from Dungeon Defenders 2, and that is the Dryad. The Warden is actually using the original concept from the DD2 MOBA as far as the art style goes. Now, today we got a look at the Warden's attacks and abilities. Now, first off, the Warden will be using a polearm, and the primary attack will be a melee attack, described in the forum post like a scythe clearing a field, destroying foes that are in melee range. Now, the secondary attack is going to be dropping a sprout on the ground, which is going to deal low AoE damage, and then it's going to shoot out a seed. This seed is going to be the Warden's way to regenerate mana. Now, I'm hoping she has some passive mana regen as well. I'm not sure if it's going to be exactly like DD2, like dropping the stars to recover the resource. We'll have to see how that goes. However, this seed is going to regenerate 15% of the Warden's mana. Now, just like the Dryad in Dungeon Defenders 2 has multiple forms that she can assume, same thing with the Warden in DDA. The Warden will have her normal form and then Wrath form. Now, Wrath form is going to give the Warden's different abilities and defenses an additional attribute or an additional function. So everything that the Warden does is going to be dependent on what form she is in. So for that secondary attack with the seed is going to grant increased damage and movement speed for 5 seconds if the Warden is in Wrath form. Now, the first thing that pops into my mind is this going to stack? Are you going to be able to drop multiple seeds or multiple sprouts on the ground and get multiple seeds gathered up, collect them all at the same time, and have some sort of a nuke? I think that would be pretty cool. I mean, we'll have to see how it gets implemented into game. Obviously, that would be something that would definitely need to be looked at from a balance perspective. I personally am kind of hoping it stacks, though. Now, the Warden's first ability is going to be the Mushroom Circle, which is going to be very similar to the Shrooms in Dungeon Defenders 2. The Warden is going to be able to drop mushrooms on the ground. In normal form, these are going to heal allies. Additionally, they're going to provide a slow and reduce the attack rate of enemies. So, important thing here is it's not only slowing their movement, it's going to slow their attack rate as well. So the normal mushrooms are going to be some good stuff and a form of healing. Now, while in Wrath form, these shrooms are going to cause enemies to take damage, and then after 10 seconds, the shrooms will erupt, dealing damage and stunning all enemies within the circle. So this is very similar function to Dungeon Defenders 2 with the mushrooms there. Now, the second ability is actually going into the Wrath form. I'm very curious to see how this works. How fast is the mana drain going to be on Wrath form? Is it going to be something we're going to be able to sustain throughout the course of a wave, or are we going to have to go in and out of it? Wrath form is going to increase the strength of all the Warden's abilities and defenses, of course, while active regardless of range. Now, this is just like Dungeon Defenders 2, so if you're on lane number 1 actively fighting and you've got defenses over on lane number 4, say, the Warden being in Wrath form will affect all of the defenses on the entire map, not just the ones in the immediate area. Now that brings us to the defenses themselves, and we've got a nice image here that was posted up of all of the defenses laid down. I'm going to make some assumptions here, but first things first, let's go through the defenses. Defense number 1, the Roots of Purity. This is the Dryad's tree from DD2. The Warden will be able to summon a blockade that can take a beating from enemies, blesses the ground with the Zone of Purity around the roots that allows the Warden's other defenses to be constructed. The Zone of Purity restores 1% HP per second to any hero within its range, or within its coverage. Now, this means that just like the Dryad in Dungeon Defenders 2, you are going to have to place down the roots before you can place defenses. So defenses will have to remain in that area of effect of the Roots of Purity. Now, the big question I have here is, what is the range? Of course, in DD2, we've got shards and mods. In Dungeon Defenders Awaken, we don't. So how big is that range? And how big that range is, I think, is really going to limit or promote more diversity in the builds. Do you have to use that directly up front as a tree, or pardon me, as a blockade, with all of the defenses surrounded around the tree, like in the early days of the Dryad in DD2? Or are we going to have some diversity in building, and is there going to be enough range of this Roots of Purity to really promote that diversity? Now, defense number 2, the Wisp Den. This is the bees, y'all. Opens a portal pulling through 3 wisps that focus down enemies within its range, always prioritizing high threat targets. So this is good stuff. Of course, you know, the bees in Dungeon Defenders 2 has very suspect AI. Hopefully the AI is dialed in on the DDA version here with the wisps. I love the thought of the wisps. I'm excited to use them and just can't wait. Now, let me bump back up to the Roots of Purity real quick, because I forgot to talk about the Wrath form. So in the Wrath form, the Roots of Purity is going to provide a Zone of Wrath, dealing damage over time to enemies within its boundaries, while also slightly reducing enemy damage. So you're going to get a mini strength drain aura and some sort of damaging aura or area of effect around the root. Once again, I'm anxious to see it. I want to see how much damage it actually puts out. This also could be a factor with where we want to place these roots, and then, of course, the other defenses as well. If this is putting out enough damage where it's, worth using, and it's not just a little tickle damage, then by all means, we might want to just throw these right up front and go with a more defense and wall type of build strategy. Now, bouncing back to the wisps. While in wisp form, the wisps become, or while in wrath form, the wisps become enraged, attacking enemies at a much faster rate. So, another thing here, once again, gonna have to see it. I want to know how much faster. Are they gonna just start wrecking it and going crazy? What are these wisps gonna do? I'm super, super excited to see it. Now, the Beaming Blossom. The Beaming Blossom is kind of a new type defense. It seems like this is going to be very interesting for sure. I'm anxious to see exactly how much damage output it does. This, of course, is going to be replacing the Dungeon Defenders 2 Harpy, or is going to be the reimagined Harpy. This one is going to be like shooting out a laser beam. Now, it is going to have to stop periodically to recharge solar energy. How is this going to be affected? Is defense rate going to affect this recharge? We're going to have to find out and see what happens with this Beaming Blossom. Now, the Beaming Blossom is going to be 5 DU. When in Wrath form, the beam becomes magically empowered, piercing through enemies. So it's just like the Harpies in that aspect in Dungeon Defenders 2. Now, one thing with the Dryad and DD2 that I have just absolutely always loved, and that is watching an army of slimes march out to collide with a group of enemies. This, I can just watch this all day long. It's the most entertaining thing. And the Shroomy Pit is coming in DDA as the reimagined slime. It's going to be the same basic concept, however, a little different effect. Now, the Shroomies are going to march on out to the enemies once they come and then explode. Once again, it comes down to let's see what happens. You know, it says it's going to deal damage in a large area. They charge leg first, a bit off balanced, and explode into enemies. How fast do they respawn? Is it going to be affected by defense rate? How big of an area of effect is their explosion going to be? Is their range going to be determined by your defense range? Will the defense range be affected by, or will the area of explosion be affected by defense range? Lots and lots of questions on the Shroomy Pit. One thing I do think, though, is that they're going to be pretty damn cool. Now, while in Wrath form, the Shroomies are going to enter into their own Wrath form, applying a dot on enemies or a damage over time effect to enemies that are hit by the explosion. So the Shroomies are going to go out. If you're in Wrath form, they're going to blow up and then apply a dot. And then last but not least, we have the Sludge Launcher, which kind of in my mind, the effect of the Sludge Launcher seems like the effect of slimes from Dungeon Defenders 2. However, this is going to be a ranged tower. Vines and logs infused together, pulling in toxins from the ground, shooting out giant globs that explode on contact, dealing a large amount of damage to the first enemy hit and heavily coat them in sludge, lightly covering nearby enemies in the sludge, slightly slowing them. So this is going to be an AoE blast that goes out, it blows up, it covers the enemies in sludge, and gives them a slow. Now, this is going to be an expensive one. It's 7 DU. I'm hoping it's Powerhouse. We're going to have to see how it works. Now, in Wrath form, when the Warden attacks a heavily sludged enemy, which is kind of the primary target, because remember it says it's going to lightly sludge the enemies around the primary target. If a Warden goes out and attacks that heavily sludged enemy, that enemy will be stunned for 1.5 seconds. So once again, something that will be fun to play with. I personally am not a big melee player. However, I am excited to play around with, the options that are available with the defenses while playing actively on the Dryad in Wrath mode. Now, they've been discussing a ton. It also says in here that they are going to be live streaming some Warden gameplay tomorrow at 3 p.m. Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern time, 12 noon Pacific time over on Twitch. Now, there will be a link down to the Twitch channel for Chromatic as well. Now, afterwards, of course, I am going to go through all of the details that are highlighted in tomorrow's stream, and we'll have yet another Warden news video coming tomorrow with some hotness from what we learn on the stream there tomorrow. So let me know down in the comments below what you think of the Dryad. Back to my guesswork here, and I think, it's pretty obvious what everything is, but from left to right, this is going to be the Wisps. Now, looking at this particular Wisp den, one question I have right away versus Dungeon Defenders 2 is this looks like it's more like an above ground thing. Is this going to be a tower that can be destroyed? I'm very curious on that. Next over, we are going to have the Sludge Launcher. So this is going to be our goop cannon that is launching all of the slime or sludge balls out at the baddies. Finally, we've got the Roots of Purity smack in the center here. I am super, super excited to see what the range is like on this thing. Right up front, we got our little Shroomy Pit, and this dude just looks amazing. And then over to the far right, we've got the Beaming Blossom. So this is gathering up its solar energy now, preparing to blast on out. So that will do it for now, y'all. Thank you all so much for swinging by. I'm super stoked to see what the Warden's going to bring for Dungeon Defenders Awakened. One thing for sure, looking through it, is it's going to bring a good time. That is no doubt. as the hero just looks like it's going to be fun to tinker around with. So thank you all once again, and I will see ya next time around. Take it easy.